Hello 8th graders. In this IXL support video we're going to be taking a look at assignment Y.10, which is called Write a Linear Equation from a Slope and a Point. And as we work on this assignment, it's important to still be really understanding our formula, y equals mx plus b, which we call slope-intercept form. Because this formula, and you see the framework sitting here already with the y equals mx plus b box or fill-in that's there, the m is going to go in for slope and the b is going to go in for y-intercept. And this assignment for Y10 starts kind of easy if you understand a couple things, and then it's going to get challenging and we'll have to show some work on a whiteboard that we'll switch over to. In the beginning, first I'm going to just kind of point out a couple of the key data points here. They tell us that the slope is going to be 2. And so right away I'm going to go ahead and plug in half of my equation. Here they're going to tell me the slope every single time, so they're telling me half the linear equation, the mx piece right away. And the other thing I need is the y-intercept. And it's important to know that the y-intercept is the y value. And we'll go ahead and write this out. The y-intercept is going to be the y value when x is 0. It is the y value when x equals 0. And that's a really important thing to understand here. Because for this assignment, sometimes they're going to tell you the y-intercept. Like here, they told you when x is 0, y is 2. By telling us the point that this line goes through, and they told us the y-intercept right away, it was positive 2. And if I recognize that, this is actually a pretty easy problem in the beginning. But what's going to happen pretty quickly, and this is already an example of this, sometimes they're going to give us a point that's not the y-intercept. So I'm going to get rid of this green box, because here they tell us the line goes through a point 1, 4. Instead, I'm going to put an orange box around that, because that's not the y-intercept, but it is going to be helpful for us in maybe finding the y-intercept. So what we'll do here is the piece we know. They tell us the slope is 9 and it goes through the point 1 and 4. So I know half the equation. They told me the slope is 9. I know the mx piece. But I don't know what the b is. They're telling me it's some kind of negative y-intercept by putting this negative sign, but I'm not sure yet what that b value is. There's a couple ways to think about this. One of them, if the slope is 9, and when x was 1, y was 4, I could work back in time. If I go back to when x is 0, I know I would have to go back by 9, and y would have to be negative 5. So if you think about the slope, and I know the slope is 9, I could jump back by 9 for the y value each time x goes back by 1, and that could get me to 0 and negative 5. But that's a tough concept to understand. I want to show you a different way here. When I don't know what the y-intercept is, but I know a slope and a point, I can use the y equals mx plus b formula. Let me show you what I mean. In this case, I'm going to put this whiteboard into full screen. We know the slope is 9, and we know it goes to the point 1 and 4. So right away, I'm going to go ahead and plug the slope of 9 in. Oh, let me get rid of some of those notes. I know the slope is 9. And I don't know the y-intercept yet. But I do know, however, that they told me the line goes to the point 1 for x and 4 for y. Recall that they told us not only the slope was 9, but that this point goes through 1 for x and 4 for y. That's actually one of the points for this equation, or one of the points on the graph. So I use that knowledge. If I know a point that this line goes through, I can go and plug the 4 in for y so long as I make the x value become 1. In short, if this equation is going to be true for every point on this line, then when y is 4 and x is 1, this equation better work. And what happened there is we've just replaced the y and the x with numbers, one of the ordered pairs or solutions, and the only variable left is b, our y-intercept, the thing we wanted to know. And if you remember solving equations with Miss Ogagba and Mr. Neville last year, then you'll know here, the b is on the right side of this equation. It's kind of why I drew this river or this line through the equation. 9 times 1 is 9, so I'm going to simplify the equation, and it tells me 9 plus the y-intercept better give us 4. Some of you might be saying, oh, that's why they told us the y-intercept is going to be negative. B must be some negative number to turn 9 into 4. If I don't know that b is negative 5, 9 minus 5 would give us 4. Then I could subtract 9 on both sides of the equation. Remember, inverse operations, or Mr. Neville may have said peeling the onion last year is his language for inverse operations. I'm trying to get the b all by itself. So what I did is I subtracted the 9 to get rid of the positive 9 that's on the right side. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, I need to do the same thing to the other side. So over here I have 4 minus 9, and that's kind of the algebra way to get this equation to tell you the answer. Oh, b must be negative 5. If we have a slope of 9 and the line goes through 1 and 4, it must have had an original y-intercept, a beginning value of negative 5, according to this equation. Because they already have the subtraction sign, I'm not going to put a negative 5 in this box. That would actually mean positive. The opposite of a negative, or the opposite of subtraction, would be adding. So because the negative sign is already there, that accounts for the negative 5 in my y-intercept value. That's our answer. So I would encourage you to read their explanations. If you work through this, you'll see kind of the same stuff we just talked about here. Or we'll show one or two more examples as you're getting more comfortable and familiar with this. So here they tell us that the slope is 6. So the first thing I'm going to do is plug in to my y equals mx plus b formula. I'm going to plug in the slope of 6. I put that in on my whiteboard. I'm going to put that up here. That's half the equation. And now my job is simply I need to find the y-intercept. They tell me it goes through a point. This is not the y-intercept, but it's still very helpful to us to find the y-intercept. They tell us it goes through the point 2 for x and 2 for y. I'll also put on the whiteboard there. And at this point now, we're going to go put the whiteboard in full screen because our job is to find the b. What is the y-intercept going to be here? And again, we're going to use that same process that we talked about on the previous problem. We plugged the 6 in for the m because we knew the slope was 6. And now as I consider this equation, I want to solve it for b, but the only way to do that is to substitute out x and y. And in this case, I know that x and y can both become 2's. This point tells me when y is 2, x will also take a value of 2 for this equation. So I'm substituting or plugging in the 2 for the x and also the 2 for y because that's what this data point told me I could do. I'm going to now solve this equation for b. 6 times 2 would give us 12. I would encourage you to be pausing this video trying to solve on your own at this point. So the equation becomes 2 is equal to 12 plus whatever b is. Again, we see that need for a negative b value. 12 plus a negative number is what will get us down to 2. And if I'm not sure that b is negative 10, some of you may know 12 minus 10 would give us 2. I can subtract 12 from both sides of the equation. Subtracting 12 will cancel out the positive 12 that's here. And I need to do the same thing on both sides of my equation to keep the equation true. 2 minus 12 would give us negative 10. And that's how we arrive at the y-intercept of negative 10. At this point, we think this is definitely a tough skill on Y10, but we've given you enough to really start working through these on your own. I would encourage you to stop this video, try to work through Y10 on your own, and I'm going to skip ahead to a couple problems that are more challenging. The way they're going to make this more challenging, so I probably would not still be watching this video unless you're up into the 50s, 60s, or 80s. But they're going to make these problems more challenging now by giving us fractions for slopes and also by putting more negative numbers involved. But the process is going to remain the same. You're going to substitute in the slope, whatever they tell you the slope is. In this case, the slope is negative 1 over 6, which is less friendly to work with, but that's fine. Y equals negative 1 over 6, that's our m value, times x plus b. And they tell us in this case, the one point they tell us that the line goes through, they tell us it goes through negative 6 for x and positive 5 for y. I'm going to put that whiteboard into full screen now. You see here they just leave you a placeholder as it gets tougher, but that shouldn't be a problem anymore. You'll just write the whole equation out yourself. And here we see our y equals negative 1 over 6x plus whatever the y-intercept is going to be. That's our formula. And we know this equation, this line has to go through negative 6 for x, positive 5 for y. So I'm going to plug in the 5 for y. I'm going to plug in the negative 6 for x. And the rest of the equation will stay the same. So now, there's a couple challenging things. One of them, we have a negative coefficient for m and a negative value for x, and a negative times a negative is going to create a positive when we start to simplify. And I should recognize that 6 divided by 6 is 1, so I could go ahead and multiply this out. 6 times 1 is 6, 6 divided by 6 will be 1. There's a few ways to see how negative 6 times negative 1 over 6 is really just going to give you positive 1. I'm going to get rid of that plus sign now. I know it's positive. We don't need to write it if it's the first term. And I know 1 plus the y-intercept makes 5. And here, even though this problem started tougher, a bunch of you were saying, wait a minute, Mr. Doherty, that just means the y-intercept is 4. You could subtract 1 on both sides if you didn't see that. Subtracting 1 would cancel out the positive 1 here. 5 minus 1 would tell you the y-intercept is 4. Recalling that our slope is negative 1 over 6. I'll go back up here. I'll put in that positive 4. Here's my final equation that I'm plugging in for IXL. I'm not going to continue showing more problems. I do think this is challenging, but we've given you the skills, the basic ideas that you'll need for any of them. And instead, if you're still having trouble on this on your own, I would highly recommend that you just reach out via email or Google Chat. My email again. My email, we'll put that on the screen right now, is ddoherty3. I think you already know this, and that's going to be at bostonpublicschools.org. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. Thank you for working hard on this very challenging assignment for Y.10.